Hello and welcome back to another episode of Handy Dandy Repairs. So today is going to be a little bit different. Unfortunately, I recorded a video fixing an Xbox Series X and the video had no audio. Now, I think it was quite an interesting repair. It had a bit of corrosion damage, a bit of liquid damage, and it was quite an involved repair. And unfortunately, because there's no audio, the video is kind of useless. So I've decided I've cut it down as short as I can to possibly just the basics, and I'm just going to record a bit of a voiceover as we watch through it. But firstly, we have some updates to the spreadsheet profit or loss. So let's have a quick look at that. Now, this PlayStation, actually, first of all, I need to move all this across because we need to add a segment here for parts costs. Now we need to do that because we need to actually keep an eye on our profit. So we need to change this formula here. E3 minus those two. So for the PlayStation here, there weren't any parts originally because it was just a capacitor, but I did end up throwing in some cables for this. Now I paid $1 for the power cable and $5 for the HDMI, so it ended up being $6 in parts, and we sold this for a total of $400, making a profit of $194. Not bad. Now this Xbox Series X still hasn't sold yet. I'm just going to delete that one. I'm going to bring this formula down so that it includes the parts costs. Yep. Yeah, so this one still hasn't sold. So we're going to move this lot down and add in another column for today. So number 3 is also an Xbox Series X. This one I only paid $200 for. Parts were just the ribbon connector, which come off a donor, so I'm not really going to include any parts for this. And this one actually has already sold because this video was recorded a little while ago. Actually, I did... Sorry, I've got this confused now. This Xbox is where I threw in the cables, so it was $6 for that. The PlayStation, I included a controller, which cost me $25 plus a joystick. So we'll just say $30 because I had to replace the joysticks. I originally bought them with stick drift, so we'll say $30 there. The Xbox I added cables to, $6 there, and that has sold for a total of $450. So once this Xbox sells, we should be looking at a nice profit, and that's just so far. That is just so far. Oh, look at that, we're already in a profit. There you go, we've already got a profit. I'll add some YouTube links later, I think, for this one. That one's obviously already posted. If you haven't already seen that, I highly recommend going and watching that video. I'll just grab a link for that one. So that's this one here. And this one will be updated once we post it. So there you go, just like that we are in the profit. We actually are in a profit. Well, thank God for that. We just need to sell this Xbox Series X here, which hasn't cost anything in parts. It was just a HDMI port, and it wasn't even a new port, so there's really no cost in that. And that one will be sold with controller and cables as well, because that one came with them. So that's it. That's all the updates for this profit or loss. So now let's go to the actual repair and we'll have a chat through that. Here it is. So first of all, we get it we start by just plugging it in, verifying the fault. It was sold to me as a no display. They didn't tell me anything else, they just said no display. At first, anyway, that's how it was listed in the description, it just said no display. They did end up telling me that there was a little bit of corrosion around the ESD booster, which is why I paid so little for it, because that being one of the more harder to get chips and harder to replace chips, and just expensive chips to replace if you can get them. I will include the photo that they sent me later on in the video. So there we try to just verify the issue. We plugged it in and it didn't display. So we've pulled it apart, and I had a lot of trouble getting this ribbon connector out. As you can see, this took a long time. And the reason is it took a long time is because it was actually stuck in the connector. That is because there was a spot on the connector that had burnt. It had shorted and actually burnt. Most likely due to corrosion. I'm not 100% sure, but if we look at that under the scope here, you can see those last two, maybe even 3 pins, I think it was just 2 pins, had actually seemed to have shorted out and blown a hole through that ribbon connector, almost completely through the ribbon connector. Just get that in focus so you can see better. There we go. So that's, yeah, quite damaged there, and that's why I had so much trouble getting it out of the connector. So we have a look at the connector, and you can see just on the pins there that it was quite corroded in that area. So here we're contemplating that we may have to replace this connector, which would be a nightmare to do, but that's one of those things we are considering at this stage. So we just give it a bit of a clean up to see the damage, and the pins are still there, still intact. Don't look great, but everything's still there. So then we have a look around the rest of the board. We found a bit more corrosion here, cleaned that off, just off that capacitor there. And then we have a quick look around the rest of the board to see if there's anything else that we've missed. There's a bit of flux there, so we clean that off while we're here. And move around the rest of the board, having a look around. There's a bit more corrosion there. I think it might be the same one we just looked at. We'll give that a bit of a clean up. And keep looking. Find a little bit more flux up in this area. Not sure why there was flux up there, but it's just flowed through the board, I think. Flowed around somewhere. Give that a bit of a dry. And continue looking all over the board. Don't see anything up there. Everything looks fine here. No flux or corrosion around this area. And keep looking. Nothing around this area. This all looks completely normal. There's a little bit of dust there. Looks a bit sticky, not sure, but we give that a clean anyway. And quick blow dry, and we continue on with the rest of the board. Now, the only real issue we've seen here was that bit of corrosion on those first capacitors, but it cleaned off fairly nicely. The cap is still connected, still read it okay, so on diode mode and things like that, we still read okay. No issues there that we could tell at this stage. So we just had a quick look around here. Didn't seem to be anything. This did have a shield on it, so that would have stopped any moisture getting in there, hopefully, at least to the point of causing damage. So then we flip to the other side of the board, have a bit of a look around this side of the board. Nothing obvious here, until we get to the ESD booster, which we were expecting there to be problems there. We didn't expect to be that big of a problem. We did know that there was meant to be corrosion around there based on the photo that the customers, that the seller on Marketplace sent us. So they were aware of the issue, but they didn't tell us that anyone had tried to fix it or do anything like that. They said they were quoted $250 to fix it, and that was it. So this is what it looks like when I got it, and this is what it looked like when they sent me a picture of it. So wasn't too happy about that, but we move on. First things first is we got the hot air, melted the flux a little bit and gave it a clean. Just quickly check the data board to see if that capacitor was supposed to be there, which it is. So we are missing that cap on C24 there. So a bit of hot air, just so we can clean the area. Not enough to move the chip or desolder or anything, just enough to sort of melt that flux so we can clean it off easier and make the whole area look a little bit neater. So that's what we do here. And then it's all nice and clean so we can have a better look. Now this is a BGA chip. It's meant to have balls under it. It's a ball grid array chip. It's attached to the board with individual balls on each pad. So we'll have a look at that in a second. We notice a bit of corrosion on this capacitor here, but doesn't look too bad. It's still attached, still measured okay. Didn't worry too much about it. Now if we have a look at this chip on the angle, we should see balls underneath it, but as we can see here, it is extremely flat to the board. There is no balls underneath it that we can see. It's been squashed completely. It's not what it's meant to look like, so we have no choice but to take it off and reball it. Based on the photo that we've seen, we were hoping just to be able to clean up the flux, reflow it, and it probably would have been okay. But we have no choice but to take it off. So a little bit of flux. We come in with the hot air, most likely at 440 degrees, 99% airflow I'm going to say, most likely. I don't actually remember, but we get that off. Have a look at the damage. We don't see any damaged pads there, thank God. So we just wick up the old solder, clean up the area, tin it with some leaded solder first, then wick up the old stuff. Yeah, this was a very, very difficult thing to do. In the kind of spot that's just so hard to get to. It's surrounded by capacitors and resistors and things like that. And it's so small. But we get it all cleaned up. We replace the capacitor on the left. We get this pad cleaned, ready to accept the new chip. And that's what we do here. We compare the new and the old, and we can see that there's a pad missing right in the middle of the chip. So the one on the left is the one that we took off, the one on the right is a brand new one, and we can see we're missing that middle pad. So at this point we decide not to reball it, we're just going to replace it. As you can see there, that's where we're pointing out that pad's gone, or corroded, or whatever, so we're just not even going to bother, we're going to replace this chip. So we add some flux, get it all lined up, as best we can anyway, come in with the hot air again, try and align the chip, get it tacked on, and it just takes so much heat in this area. Trying to be careful not to actually overheat the chip itself because they are so fragile. So it takes a little bit, but then we eventually get it stuck. So we come in with some, there we go, come in with some more flux and try to reflow it. And eventually that works out for us. And we can get it to bounce into place there, and we call it good. One more test, just in case. There we go. We eventually get it to bounce into place. Give the area a clean, and have a look under it. We see balls, we're good. So we move on to this. Now, we give inside the port a clean, we check it all, do the best that we can to make sure it's okay. Now we plug the ribbon connector in and we test with the multimeter to make sure we've got continuity through the connector, through the cable, which we do. And no shorts between them either, no short from one pin to the next. So we know that the port should be okay. We try and clean in there with some iFixit tools, nothing really gets in there, so we just use a brush, and then we end up putting some deoxit on there, which comes in the iFixit cleaning kit. We put the ribbon cable in and out a few times to try and spread that around and just clean off any corrosion on that pin. This is what the deoxit's meant to do. The pins don't look great there, they don't look aligned like the rest, but we do have continuity through it, so we're not too worried at this stage. So then we replace the thermal liquid bed, the thermal paste, get it all back together, ready to test, and we have an image on the screen here. Unfortunately, once I finished the video, I went to test it on 4K and it didn't work. The reason it didn't work is because this resistor right here lost a pad and was not making a complete path. It's meant to be a 0 ohm resistor and we didn't have that. So we got that resistor replaced, checked again, worked in 4K, and that was it. It was perfect, good to go. And that's it. That was the repair. So ended up just being a new ESD booster, which I think from memory are around $30. I think I paid $180-ish for 5 of them. So we'll put that down as $30, which I didn't do. So yeah, we've just added the $30 to the parts cost there, and we're still in the profit. But yeah, unfortunately, it's just the way it goes. Unfortunately, we didn't have audio. I don't know why. My settings were all correct. It just wasn't picking up audio through OBS. OBS was set to the default mic. According to Microsoft, the default mic was the mic that I use. Not sure why it didn't work. So now I've set it in OBS to only select that mic, not the default mic. And hopefully we won't have those issues again, because that was really annoying. But I hope you stuck around to at least see what the repair was and what the issue was with the console. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment down below. I love hearing comments, reading comments. I read them all. And please check out the other videos and let me know what you want to see me repair in the future.